right, hi folks, welcome back to my channel. It's been a little minute, but we back. I'm actually starting this series called Soulful Sundays with Shell. It was actually inspired by one of my coworkers who was like, you should do a Soulful Sunday. So this is that. I've been feeling a little under the weather, so sorry, but I got my little honey essential tea concoction here that I really need. Bear with me, y'all. All right. So, I've been thinking about like, all right, ready to do my next video. What do I talk about? There's kind of so many things that I could talk about. So I just started to, or decided to just kind of start with just what I've been learning. That's probably the easiest to do. I do have a couple things specifically in mind that I want to mention, but I don't have anything super prepared. I like to just kind of go off the dome a little bit and see what happens. So I'm taking y'all back a few months to just like some of the things that I had been learning. So the three things that I wanted to talk about was one, codependency, because that was a huge thing for me a few months ago, huge lessons learned. This elder son mentality, I'll talk about that a little bit. And then the third one just being just allowing people to have their own experiences contrary to mine, so contrary to my own experiences, and just have that be okay. Sips tea. All right, so I have here my journal. It says start each day with a grateful heart, and I'm just gonna read back some notes about codependence and then talk a little bit. So I started watching this YouTube series on codependence that one of my friends recommended to me, and it turned out to be really good. So some notes that I have here on codependence is bred from something happened in my life that brought me to a place of brokenness that I can't explain. So that was kind of how the woman came to kind of learn about her own codependence, which I could relate to. A place of powerlessness, and God just really teaching her how counterfeit her love system was. I can relate to all of that. This idea of what I thought love was in different relationships versus God's idea of love, and how I was just off in so many ways. The term codependence was originally used to describe the spouse of a significant other, specifically the spouse of someone who had an addiction. So it was bred from AA meetings, alcoholism. The spouses of the addicts were usually called codependent, because codependence is a set of learned coping skills used to function in an environment that is dysfunctional or imbalanced. So codependence is, how have I learned to cope with this unhealthy environment? And a lot of times you may learn to cope in unhealthy ways in an unhealthy environment. It's overly focusing on the needs of others, causing them to misunderstand the purpose of relationships. Overly focusing on the needs of others. I'm going to put a pin in that. We think it's our job to do something. Codependents do. We think it's our job to care, to give, to hold things together. Codependents are usually rescuers. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to change it. Though their own needs get neglected, and growth in all areas is stunted. So we play rescuer to kind of our own detriment. She said something that resonated with me, that was, all she knew was how to please and accommodate others, and live my life in radical fear of failure, messing up, doing anything that would place me in a negative light. That's me. Put a pin there. And so a codependent versus an addict. A codependent will disconnect. They'll feel a need to feel emptiness. They fix problems in order to feel validated themselves. They think that good efforts undo negative situations. They feel responsible and able to change problems. Versus an addict is someone who needs someone to fill in the gaps, who needs someone to be able to be like, them having a responsible person in their life enables them to be able to be irresponsible. They can be overly nurtured. They try to get their needs met through people. They feel entitled to others, being more given, usually emotionally unavailable, and can kind of be stuck in like at an immature age emotionally. So me, codependent, me, overly focusing on the needs of others, causing them to misunderstand the purpose of relationships, rescuer. And so I've learned about myself that I honestly don't even really know what it's like to be needy, or to even recognize my own needs and situations. Everything about so many of my important relationships were always about, what can I do for you? If someone wants to vent, it was never about just letting the person vent. It's always about how I can help fix the problem. If I know that somebody is going through something, especially people close to me, I feel this, responsibility to offer the right advice, to offer money, to help, whatever the case may be. And none of those things are necessarily bad, but in the situation of codependency, where my validation is bred from that, that's when it becomes unhealthy, because what happens is I'm going to tend to attach myself more closely to people that I can get that validation from. So people that I think really need me, or people that I can come to the rescue for, all while neglecting myself. And the thing about me is that I don't think it's ever been the case that I feel anybody has taken advantage of that with me, or whatever the case may be. So it truly has nothing to do with what people are necessarily asking of me. It's only how I feel entitled to respond regardless. But the ways that I felt like I did see it in an unhealthy way is that it's addicts who may not know they're addicts, and the codependent rescuer in me, feeding into that addiction. And when I say addict, we ain't even talking drugs and alcohol and that type of thing. We are talking like emotionally, honestly. They may not realize that they always need that person there, or there's someone who always takes, but they are. And the codependent in me is not good for the addict in them. So that was just really interesting, because she talked about how it really jacked up her love system. And it's because you always think that it's give and take. I do something good that's going to produce a change in you that's going to be beneficial for me. And so I'm not just letting you be your own person and have your own experiences and know that your decisions and your choices actually have nothing to do with me. I expect that because I'm coming to your rescue and trying to help, you then are supposed to accept my help and change, and then that benefits me. But nothing about that is how God truly intended for love to be. Christ's love for me and God's love for me cost me absolutely nothing. God came to my rescue simply because he wanted to, not because there had to be anything in return. And so that's how that love system gets jacked up. And I think that at a young age, I just learned to bear the weight of a lot. I think that I matured emotionally pretty quickly. And my definition of emotional maturity, or how that happened, was just taking on the weight of a lot of things, where I was just going to step in and I was just going to do what I had to do, and come to the rescue in whatever ways that I needed to, and be strong and all of that. And then the other thing, living my life in radical fear of failure, of messing up and doing anything that will place me in a negative light. Gosh, like I've had so much turmoil over what is the right decision. God tell me exactly what to do and I will do it. Because I think that if God is the one who tells me what to do, then that's going to work out pretty well and it won't place me in a negative light. But I found myself in situations where I felt like I follow God and it ain't working out the way that I thought that it was supposed to work out, right? And so there's this like, oh, what's my next move then? Did I hear from God that time? I need to really be sure that I hear from God this time. And it just like completely goes against everything that God is, not even just in the sense of free will necessarily, but just being a God of grace and mercy who can bring you back from anything. But me living in that fear of mistake says that like there's some mistake that I think that I can make that God can't bring me back from. And that completely goes against like everything that God is. So I was sitting here reflecting on all of that. Literally that journal entry is from like late August. So it's been a journey, guys. And so like I was just sitting there reflecting on that and coming to all these realizations, right? And just like, okay, I'm completely off here. And just talking to my counselor and her just saying like, there's this aspect of God's character that you're like really missing right now. And I didn't see or realize that to be the case before these situations that brought that out in me. So the next thing is this elder brother mentality. So when I talk about the elder brother mentality, I'm talking about the parable of what most people know as the prodigal son, but also called the parable of the prodigal. Most people know it as the parable of the prodigal son, but it's also called the parable of the lost son. What I found was that it's the parable of the two lost sons. And this is out of Luke 15, starting in verse 11 that I'm reading. And I honestly just have my Bible here to be able to reference so I don't like totally go off the wall and misspeak. But some of you may know the story. The younger son, he kind of goes off the rails a little bit and he's like, yo, Father, pay me what you owe me. I want to take all of that and just kind of like go out and sort of do my own thing, for lack of better words. He goes out, he's out there kind of wilding out, he's doing his own thing, he blows his inheritance, he comes back and he's received with open arms. Meanwhile, there's an elder brother who has worked for his dad, has done the right things, he's continued to kind of, be the son that he should be. So the younger brother comes back, he's received with open arms. And then in verse 28 of Luke chapter 15, it says the older brother was angry and wouldn't go in to greet his brother when he came back. And he said, all these years I've slaved for you and never once refused to do a single thing you told me to. And in all that time, you never gave me even one goat for a feast with my friends. Yet when this son of yours comes back after squandering your money on prostitutes, you celebrate by killing the fattened calf. Older brother is upset, okay? Older brother is like, look, man, I've been doing the right thing. This kid gonna get to come back in and just get your best after he been out here literally squandering his inheritance on prostitutes. Like, I've been here slaving and working. I am the older brother. If you are an older brother, raise your hand, okay? Where do I even start? So I really love the fact that as opposed to calling this parable the parable of the lost son, that we call it the parable of the two lost sons. Because as I studied this out, I realized that both of these guys were equally jacked up, right? You just have one son who's very overt with how jacked up his heart is, and he's just gonna go out and sin blatantly. And then you have the elder son who's jacked up internally, but because he keep doing the right things, don't nobody know he jacked up until he open his mouth and like truly show where he's at. So he's upset basically about his brother being able to receive grace after he screwed up royally, which means that like his heart was in no better shape. Because again, as I learned about that jacked up love system, I'm thinking that my good action is supposed to have a result. He's feeling like, hey, my good action is supposed to have a result. I've been the one here slaving and working for you. You ain't never killed no calf for me, bro. You know? And so that's me. Like, I'm the one that says like, yo, but I've been working so hard to do the right thing. And that's one of the huge lessons that God has been trying to teach me, is that it was never about works though. And though there's clearly so many passages in the Bible that talks about works, I'm just like a super type A rule follower that says, just tell me exactly what to do and I'll do it, you know? But even in following the rules, it wasn't always about like finding joy in following the rules, but really just about like, it's the rules, so I got to do it, you know? Don't matter what I think about it or what you think about it, it's the rules, so do it. But not being in touch with my own heart to really like get my heart in the right place and my conviction in the right place about my actions, as opposed to just checking the box. Not to be confused with, sometimes you just got to do what you know is right to do, and your emotions and feelings may not be there. That's cool. But I can't create this lifestyle of simply following the rules and not having a heart in touch, because what happens is when I see somebody else rewarded, or not even rewarded but just not punished, so maybe they're not getting rewarded but they're not getting punished for their wrongdoing, then I'm like, hello. And God is like, yeah, that ain't right either. You know, that's not the heart to have either. And I can't think of the name of the book right now that my counselor had me read, but I may try to go find it and put it in the description box or link it below right here. But it was just so good because it broke down like culturally how jacked up both of these brothers were. And so that's another thing. Like I would encourage you all to go back and read that parable in Luke 15 and figure out which one you are, and work through your heart regardless, whether you're the person who's super overt and just like, I'm gonna do what I want to do, forget this, or if you're the person who does the right things and your heart is jacked up because like you really don't even want to be doing the right things, but you feel like you ain't got no choice, so you're obedient to a fault almost. So that's been interesting to learn, because it's like, okay, well, I don't just go out here and just like make mistakes I don't just like go to the opposite end and just completely become the younger son. But I can't like stay in this elder son place, because he's almost more jacked up, because his sin isn't as apparent until he starts to talk. And it's like, oh, you jacked up too. So how do I find the middle? And so the third lesson, and it goes within this kind of same theme, is just like being able to allow somebody's experience and perspective to be different from mine, and it be okay. I just really felt like I thought a lot of my perspectives and experiences on different things were just law. Right, I'm right, pride. But like I've just learned that like it's okay that somebody disagrees with you, that somebody doesn't see this situation the same, that your values may be different in this way, in one way or another, and y'all just disagree, you know? I mean, and it just is what it is. But I haven't been great about just being able to just let people's experiences be their experiences, and I don't have to agree with your experience. Like, it's yours. It's the eyes that you see through, and you don't have to agree with mine. It's mine. It's the eyes that I see through. And there, you know, in some situations has to be some meeting in the middle, in some way, on behalf of both parties. But I don't have to try to make you get it from my perspective, and or make you agree or make you understand. But also, I shouldn't be trying to change your perspective necessarily to fit mine. It's just okay for people to live in opposite worlds, you know, in some way, just through the vantage points that they see through. Because I think the question actually is, okay, if we see this from different perspectives and our values are different, how can we both help each other, you know? Because I do think that in that way, two are better than one. And so in having that realization, it's like, okay, two healthy individuals can like completely have their own experiences, and they can accept each other's experiences for what they are, not try to make or change the other person to be conformed to their way of doing things, and be like, okay, you know. That kind of blew my mind, because I was just thinking like, no, you gotta agree and you gotta think the same, and you know, it gotta go one way or the other kind of thing. So that's just a snippet. I'm gonna stop there because I'm at like 20 minutes and I don't want people's attention span to kind of wane out here. So this is episode 1 of Soulful Sundays. If you all check out my blog, which I'll link below, my blog post on the blog site are on a page called Soul Food. And so we're trying to just keep in theme here with that. And so I'll link that below. Check that out. Episode 2, we'll see what I'm feeling like. And also, if you haven't checked out my recent blog post, it was called Death with No Goodbye. And that blog really just talks about losing. And that blog is truly about people. But also, it doesn't truly have to be like a physical death. It can be grieving, lost relationships, or whatever the case may be, in any situation that you just feel like you didn't get closure from. So I want to talk a little bit about that as well, which I think would be really good, because I had a hard time just really getting in touch with some things, not really knowing what to do. And I had to go back and work through some grief from deaths of individuals literally 10 years ago or more, to really get in touch again with what I was feeling in 2019, and that was like 2008 and 2010. So that'll be pretty cool. So thank you all for tuning in. I am going to try to stay healthy with this here concoction. Comment below, like, subscribe, tell me what you think, check out the blog, all of that. And I will see you all next time on Soulful Sundays with Shell. All right, have a good one, y'all.